So emerald ash borer is an insect that is not native to the United States. It's from Asia and has been in the United States since about 2002, when it was found in the Detroit area and identified there. Since then, it's spread to other states in the Midwest and the East Coast, where it has devastated millions of ash trees. So unfortunately, it was discovered in Boulder in the fall of 2013. So now we are going to be on the lookout for the symptoms and the insect itself as it is beginning to damage trees in Boulder. So first of all, I thought what we'd do is look at talk a little bit about the life cycle so you can begin to recognize those pieces. First of all, the adult insect here is, we'll start with the adult cycle. They are flying in the May, June, July in Colorado, mostly in the June and July period. This actually looks like a pretty large insect, but the beetle is about 5/8 of an inch long. And the adults will, after they emerge from their feeding, from their resting, will begin to feed on the ash leaves. And they'll do this for maybe a couple of weeks and then mate and lay eggs. And then after they lay the eggs, the larvae that emerge from that begin to chew through the bark, and they tunnel underneath into the tissue right underneath the bark and begin to do their damage, which looks like this. They will do this tunneling activity, kind of zigzag back and forth, and the larvae begin very small, as you might imagine, as humans do. They make smaller, narrower tunnels, and then as they continue to grow and develop and feed, the tunnels become larger, and you can see it's back and forth, back and forth. So as the insects are doing their tunneling activity, as the larvae are tunneling in the tree right underneath the bark, that's where the conductive tissue happens to be located. So the effect of their injury, or the effect of the damage that they're causing, is that we get this crown dieback, because water can't get into the upper portion of the tree, and that's why you begin to see that particular symptom. Here is a larvae, and they are flattened. Their segments are bell-shaped, so they're very different looking than a lot of other insects. After they complete their feeding, which will be sometime in October, then the insects will go into what is called a prepupal stage. They tunnel a little bit deeper than where they've been feeding and rest there through the winter months. Then they will pupate in about April and emerge as adults. And as they leave the tree, they cut these D-shaped exit holes. Okay, so the straight side of the D doesn't have to be on the bottom, top, it can be sideways, whatever. The hole actually is quite tiny. It's about 1/8 of an inch across, so they're very small, hard to find. And say, for example, in comparison to the lilac ash borer holes, which are larger and more oval or circular in shape, very common pest of ash trees in Colorado, and very often to the novice confused between the two insects. But you can see the shape and the size is very different. A little bit about their symptoms, how you would know if you have an ash tree that has emerald ash borer. First of all, the damage begins in the crown with crown thinning. Now this particular tree is about 60-70% canopy loss, so that really needs to be removed. But what you would begin to look for is some crown thinning, some branch death, because when the insects, after they feed and mate and lay their eggs, they do this in the mid to upper portions of the canopy. So probably would need a pair of binoculars to examine that to see if indeed you can see the D-shaped holes that are present. Another clue that you would look for is the suckering at the base and in the upper portions of the tree. So these little sucker sprouts, very tender succulent tissue, begin to arise. Another thing to look for would be the size of the leaves. You can see with my hand here, compared next to some leaves of the ash, how tiny they are compared to what they should be. That should be covering a good chunk of my hand if those were full-size leaves. So trees that are damaged then from the emerald ash borer can be rescued up to a point, to about 30% canopy loss. After that, then the decision needs to be made whether or not the tree should be treated or whether or not the tree should be removed. And if you begin to treat a tree, one has to do that every year or every other year, depending on the product of choice. Otherwise, the tree, if you discontinue treatment, the tree will die.